We bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, hello there. Tonight, coming up for you, the Met Police boss has said that his officers would rather face a terrorist than a gang member because of the pressure for legal investigations into the handling of the latter when it comes to split-second decisions, often by campaign groups. So I'm asking you, how much scrutiny should these armed officers face when it comes to their handling of life and death situations? And a new campaign calling for us all now to put pressure on our pension funds to get them to stop investing in companies who fund new oil and gas. Should we? What is more important to you, the planet or the cold, hard cash that you'll end up retiring with? And be honest, please, no one is going to judge you. And Sunak, he is under the spotlight again today after cancelling a meeting with the Greek PM over the Elgen marbles. Do you think these things should be given to Greece? Let me ask you again, honestly, do you care about this? And it's been said many times before that the first casualty of war is the truth. And with things now at a critical stage when it comes to the Israel-Hamas conflict, do you know what to believe anymore? Yes, indeed. I've got all of that to come and more. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live to Polly Middlehurst for tonight's latest news headlines.
Michelle, thanks very much indeed. The top story from the GB newsroom is that the United States is asking Israel to take greater care in any future strikes on Gaza. It's a shift in its approach to the conflict, the White House saying civilians and vital infrastructure must be protected. It comes as negotiations continue on extending the current pause in fighting, with Hamas due to release 10 Israeli hostages tonight, we believe. And in our other main story today, all 41 workers who've been trapped in a collapsed tunnel in India have been brought to the surface today. Rescuers broke through rocks and debris to reach the crew who were trapped underground for 17 days. The men are currently on their way to a field hospital for checks. The delicate rescue mission involved transporting the workers one at a time on stretchers through a pipe 3 feet wide. The Indian authorities had been supplying the men with oxygen, food and water through a separate channel. Schools could be forced to stay open during strike action under tough new plans to be introduced by the government. The Education Secretary says strikes over the last year were some of the most disruptive on record. Teaching unions described the plans for minimum service levels as shameful, but Gillian Keegan says her priority is keeping kids in school.
Well, we are still supporting the fundamental right to strike, but we're trying to balance that with the fundamental right of a child to an education as well, and for students to be able to sit exams, for example. These have a massive impact on young people and on their parents. So what we're trying to do is just balance those two rights. And quite often you will see that schools do a lot to support those children anyway. Obviously they care to make sure that they support the children in their care. But what we want to do is make that uniform across the country.
Gillian Keegan. Now, a double murderer who sexually abused the bodies of more than 100 dead women wasn't caught due to serious failings at the hospitals where he worked, an inquiry has found today. David Fuller was employed at the now-closed Kent and Sussex Hospital and the Tunbridge Wells Hospital between 2005 and 2020. Inquiry Chairman Sir Jonathan Michael said the maintenance worker was able to access the mortuary 444 times in just 1 year, unnoticed and unchecked.
Failures of management, of governance, of regulation, failure to follow standard policies and procedures, together with a persistent lack of curiosity, all contributed to the creation of an environment where he was able to offend, and to do so for 15 years without ever being suspected or caught.
Now, a controversial new book that promises to reveal details about tensions within the royal family has been described by royal insiders as vicious and poisonous. The much-anticipated Endgame arrived on bookshelves today. Among the allegations by its author, Omid Scobie, is that the relationship between Prince Harry and his brother is beyond repair. He also writes His Majesty the King, Queen Camilla and the Prince of Wales conspired to undermine Harry and his wife, Meghan Markle. Now, a man has admitted killing 3 people who died in separate attacks in Nottingham early this year. Students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, both 19, and 65-year-old caretaker Ian Coates died after being stabbed in June. Valdo Calocane, also known as Adam Mendes, denied murder but admitted 3 counts of manslaughter on the basis of diminished responsibility. Thousands attended vigils for the victims in Nottingham in the wake of the attacks. Now, it's going to be snow on the way for us all this weekend. The Met Office is predicting snow in parts of the UK as we head into the festive season. They've issued a yellow weather warning for snow and icy conditions, creating hazardous driving conditions, particularly in the northeast of England, Yorkshire and parts of Scotland, as well as most parts of Britain. The warning is in place until late tomorrow morning. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Thanks for that, Polly. You ended your highlights there with the snow. That, for me, was definitely good news. What about you guys at home? Because I know perhaps, I don't know if you're slightly elderly, if you live in a more rural area, that news of that snow might not be such a good thing, mightn't it? Get in touch and tell me what you think. I am Michelle Dewbs and I'm with you till 7 o'clock. Alongside me, I've got the contributing editor at Novara Media, Michael Walker, and the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Good evening.
Good evening.
She's ever so colourful. If you're listening or watching, you're missing a treat. You are literally, I'm not sure if there are any colour of the rainbow that you are not accounting for along your outfit. These wallets, the highlighter pens, the post-it notes, it's all going on. You're bringing a nice ray of sunshine into the studio tonight. You know the drill as well, don't you? It's not just about us three, it is about you guys at home. What's on your mind tonight? And can you help me settle something in my own mind, please? Because so much of the media today is obsessing with this, what's his name? I want to say Omid Scobie, but that's not it, is it? What's his name?
Omid Scobie.
Omid Scobie. Do you care about this book? I mean, do you? Am I missing something here? Because every time I see these headlines, it makes me roll my eyes and I just go, oh, really? But obviously people do, because it's all over the place. Are you one of those people? Is that the kind of thing you want to see in this show or not? Tell me, gbviews@gbnews.com is how you get hold of me, or you can tweet me at gbnews. Lots of very important topics I want to cover with you tonight, not least the one I'm about to kick off with, which is the way we treat our police officers in this country. I find it quite interesting. The Met Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, he was speaking out to the Sun newspaper, and what he was saying basically is that his armed police in the Met would rather face well-trained terrorists than gangsters, because apparently this all comes off the back of the worry about the split-second decisions that these guys and girls are making, and then what comes off the back of it, the whole kind of legal backlash and all the rest of it. He's saying basically he wants a fairer system. Because he doesn't like the fact, and he doesn't think it's necessarily fair, that these officers then face suspension and often as well prosecution. These are very split-second decisions. Where are you on this, Dawn?
Yes, I think we do. I think the frontline officers excuse me, on the whole, do an incredibly hard and dangerous job, and I do think we need to look after them more. I remember covering the story of Mark Duggan back in 2011 now, and I still feel we're having the same conversations. The armed officers, they don't get any more. They're volunteers for that. They don't get any more pay for doing that job. And we have one case at the moment, PC Paul Fisher, who crashed his unmarked police car responding to a terrorist attack in Streatham. Now, he was found not guilty of dangerous driving, but the Independent Police Commission is now considering a gross misconduct charge against him, or case against him, and that is going on and on for nearly 4 years. Meanwhile, his life is on hold, his family's life is on hold. What we want, Michelle, is we want good coppers who go to dangerous places and dangerous people and stop them behaving in a way like that. But if we've got a police force that are worried in case they're going to end up in trouble, then that's putting all our lives at risk.
It is. Funny you should mention Mark Duggan. Whenever I hear that was an awful case. But I always remember now the riots. People
the Tottenham riots, yes.
And nicking trainers.
Yes.
There was going into the trainer shops. I will never forget that.
Yeah.
People nicking plasma TVs as well. Anyway, I digress. Michael, what do you make to this about the armed police?
Well, I mean, I think that discussion of the riots is actually sort of instructive because, yes, I mean, there were some people rioting who just wanted a flat-screen TV, but there was also undeniably sort of an awful amount of anger, frustration at the feeling that the police weren't held accountable when they sort of gave differential treatment to especially people of colour or just working-class people in inner cities, because it was people of all races who were rioting, wasn't it? So I think this idea that the police are too accountable, that we are too strict with them, could be a risky route to go down, especially if we think about recent history. So we are just 2 years after the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving armed police officer, in fact.
We are.
Very recently, David Carrick, one of the most prolific rapists in British history, who was serving as a police officer for 17 years, was convicted. Now, that is not to tar every police officer with these dreadful crimes, but I think this focus on should they be less accountable, should we let them get away with more, is potentially not where I think the emphasis should be right now.
But then do you think, right, because would you be an armed police officer?
No. I mean, I think it's important to know. It's similar as well with professions such as being a doctor or a nurse. If your job involves life and death decisions, then you are taking on an awful responsibility. It's the same with doctors and nurses. They can get tried or charged for gross misconduct because someone can die because of a decision they've made. And I am so grateful and relieved that I don't have to make life or death decisions in my job. And I do think it should be remunerated properly, right? So it does seem a bit odd to me that armed police officers don't get paid more, because if they are taking on a responsibility whereby they have to make life and death decisions, I don't see why they shouldn't get a little bonus for that.
Most of the cases that are currently going through with the Independent Office of Police Conduct now have been found not guilty in the criminal court, and most of them are actually found innocent by the IOPC as well. So, but I completely agree, Michael. You know, we don't want to be too soft on our police, but we also want police officers who are confident to go and tackle crime and go and tackle criminals on our behalf. And the Sarah Everard incident that you mentioned was absolutely shocking and appalling. But I think it's dangerous to tar all police officers with the same brush. I was talking to a mate of mine who happens to work for the Met, just an ordinary beat copper, and he was talking about policing the Palestinian peace marches and the anti-Semitism march. And he goes, there is so much onus on the men and women on the front line to make decisions. He goes, how do I know what is a racist chant or a racist placard? He goes, I'm just an ordinary beat Bobby from Essex. He goes, there is a lot of pressure on them from their bosses and also from us on the... They feel like they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't at the moment, and most of them do a very good job.
So what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that the management don't have the backs of the officers on the ground?
I think a lot of them feel that way. I think Sir Mark Rowley has come in and hit the ground running, and hopefully he will change things around, Michelle. But I think there's an awful lot of ordinary officers now who are concerned that they don't have the backing of their own management.
And it's like the officer that was charged with the murder, I think it was, of Chris Cabba. That person, he's going to have... I mean, I'm trying to be careful with my words, but that person is going to have their anonymity removed. What do you think to that officer being named?
Well, there's not so much we can say about this because it's an ongoing criminal investigation.
But let's make it about the concepts of anonymity.
Well, I think it's important to note here. So there was a situation a few months ago where a number of police officers said, we're going to hand in our guns because this police officer has been charged for murder. And sort of the implication there was, you know, we're constantly working at risk of our freedom being taken away. Now, over the past 33 years, only 4 police officers have been charged for murder, and none of them have been convicted. So this idea that we are too tough on cops, I think, is somewhat misleading. You know, I think the standards for charging a police officer for a crime such as this are presumably quite high. So I don't think we should make any judgments about, you know, this person might be being dragged through the mud, as it were.
Yeah, because I've got to say, I am quite uncomfortable with that whole... And I am being careful, because it's a live, active case. That's why we're all collectively saying we're being careful with our words. But the whole concept that you can be an armed police officer, you make the call that you, presumably at the time, you think is the right call, and then for your name then to be released... I worry about then the safety potentially of those, I'm making it generic, but the safety potentially of those officers in that situation if their name is in the public domain. And then I kind of think, what is the value in that? What is the value in
that is someone... So this is quite... I suppose there's 2 issues here, isn't there? There's one where it's a sort of internal disciplinary issue. So the IOPC, for example, that's an organisation which is specifically dedicated to investigating the police. The person... charged with the murder of Chris Cabot, they're just in a normal murder investigation like any other member of the public, and it is the case.
Yeah, but that's my question. Should they be? Should they be treated? You're saying they're in this situation, so I'm making it more generic, not specific to the individual, but you're saying, oh, that officer is, you know, up for murder, and therefore is being treated like any other member of the public, but should you be?
Well, it depends on the... Well, that's why it's difficult to talk about, because it depends on the situation. Obviously, if there's a split-second decision, you think your life is in danger, and you make one call instead of another call, then obviously the fact that you are a police officer in that difficult situation, you know, does put you in a more sympathetic light. But we don't know what happened in this situation and whether or not there is a reason whereby the Crown Prosecution Service think this Ron really is worth prosecuting his murder.
I just would not be a copper for love nor money. I would not. I don't think you get any gratitude from the public. I think you get thrown under the bus often.
By your own
you have
bosses.
a media that's just chomping at the bit constantly to undermine the police. But I think that a lot of decisions made by management doesn't help them. Hence, you get officers taking the knee and doing stupid things like policing tweets and telling people what you can and can't say. So I think that they just have the odds stacked against them.
I think they do, and I think the danger we're in now is losing good officers. Officers going, that's it, I've had enough, I'm leaving, either to go and work in private security or private law enforcement or even going abroad. There's an awful lot of Metropolitan Police officers in particular who have gone to Canada recently to work for the law enforcement over there. So I think we're in danger of losing lots of good men and women who are responsible for looking after us all, our safety. And it's, I think, the bad ones that will stay because they're the ones that aren't wanted elsewhere.
I think there is also the issue. So I don't think when people leave the police force, it's just because, you know, there's too much negative attitudes towards the police in the public. We've also got to remember there were dramatic cuts to the police services over the past 13 years.
Yeah.
And I was on this show, actually, I can't remember their name, but when the fella escaped from prison.
Daniel Khalifi.
Yeah, and there was...
Or Terror Man, if you watch that clip of Martin Daubney. No offence to Martin, I love him dearly, but I'll never stop chuckling at that. But anyway, Daniel...
There were lots of stories sort of in the news of people who worked in the prison service, and basically one of the problems they had is that all the experienced people left, because when you make cuts, one of the first things you do is offer everyone voluntary redundancy. So they offered everyone voluntary redundancy. All the experienced people left. You only had inexperienced people, and then what happens... Well, I'm not going to say that their behaviour caused this escape, but that was sort of speculation which was emerging. I think everyone agrees that working conditions and outcomes within the prison service are bad, and I wouldn't be surprised if similar levels of cuts means that we're seeing similar levels of struggles within the police force.
Well, there you go. Christopher, my viewer, says, if I get something wrong at work, I expect consequences. So what's different with these police officers? Do your job right, don't get trigger happy, and if you do, then you should face the consequences. But Michael says, Michelle, I am a retired police officer. The police bosses are terrified, he says, to make decisions now when an allegation is made against a serving officer, be they armed or not, he says. It's because of the liberal work pressure from certain media outlets. That's his view. Let me know your thoughts course, on police officers. Would you be a police officer? It's all well and good, isn't it, pontificating, but would you actually put your money where your mouth is, put yourself in that danger in the current climate? Are you a police officer? What do you make to it all? I've got lots coming your way. Another celebrity telling us what we should be doing when it comes to our money, particularly pensions this time. Do you think we should be putting pressure on our pension companies and asking them to stop investing in new oil and gas?
Earlier with Eamon and Isabel.
There's a lot of quite serious allegations in this book, mainly towards the working members of the royal family. The Princess of Wales, actually, surprisingly comes in for quite a character assassination.
I think what they should do now is get on with their own life. Stop harassing their families.
I think you're not only friends with Meghan, you're a mouthpiece.
So last night, 11 hostages released by Hamas, 8 of them children, 3 of the mothers.
The first transatlantic flight using sustainable fuel will fly today. Well, let's speak to the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper. Mark, will you be on board?
Yes, I will. Good morning, Eamon.
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
Monday to Thursday
from 6 a.m.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock alongside me, contributing editor at Novara Media, Michael Walker, and the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. One of my viewers made a good point. We were just talking about the police earlier on. He says that one of the challenges now is this requirement for everyone to have a degree. Yes, I actually agree with you because I do think it changes the calibre sometimes of people that go into that profession. I remember some of my viewers telling me, I'm sure you've told me that you're ex-forces and you struggled to get into the police force because you didn't have a degree. I think that is a really interesting one, this whole obsession with degrees. We can perhaps look at that in a bit more detail on a future show, but for now, there's nothing I love more, I can tell you, than some famous actress telling me what I should be doing with my time, my money, and my thoughts, and you name it, whatever. This time it's the turn of the Hollywood actress Olivia Colman. Take a look and a listen to this.
Hello, my name is Olivia Colman, and on behalf of the fossil fuel industries, I would like to say a huge thank you for all your support this bumper year. People like you have pumped billions of your hard-earned pounds into our gas and oil businesses. The cash from your pensions has helped us dig, drill and destroy more of the planet than ever before. We've even managed to build a few little wind turbines to keep Greta and her chums happy. Cute. You see, every little drop from your precious nest egg adds up. So while the global temperature may go up a teensy-weensy degree or two, our profits are literally soaring. And that's all thanks to you. So to guarantee us all a warmer, snugglier future, please keep sending your pensions our way. You know the drill. Oh, fracking hell. Okay. Start again.
Yes.
Yes, Olivia, people do indeed know the drill because they watch Dewbs and Co. I think she might have taken inspiration for that line from this very programme. And you know what? Credit where it's due because, of course, we are now talking about this issue because of that video. But I do get a little bit tired, Dawn, of celebrities, actors, actresses saying you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should... Well, I'll tell you what, if you feel so passionately about that, off you trot, sort out your own pension fund and live a nice, happy life. Why do the rest of us need to be lectured in that way?
Here we go, it's another I'm all right, Jack Lovey, isn't it? He will never have to worry about being able to pay to heat her own home when she's a pensioner, let's be honest with you. I have to say I like the advert, it's very funny. I love the line at the end. It is funny, and fabulous boots, by the way. And I like Olivia Colman, I think she's a great actress. But the thing is, you know... It is pensioner shaming as well, for a start, which is wrong, because, as I said, most people are never going to be in a position that Olivia Colman's in. And does she practice what she preaches? And the thing is with pension funds, it's the duty of a pension fund to invest to get as much return for the people that invest in them. That is their legal duty. So unless they specifically diversify away from that and say we are an environmentally friendly one, we are not investing in fossil fuels even, then they have to invest in the areas that are going to make their trustees the most money. So it's a bit of a legal minefield as well. Now, you can, look, you pay your money, you take your choice. You, as a pension, if you're investing in a pension, you can go, and it's very easy to find out where they invest their money. You can go to a pension fund that does only invest in ecologically sound companies that they get a return from.
Just to give you some facts and figures on this, in case you were not watching the screen but you're listening instead, what they're saying, this campaign group is saying that UK pensions invest £88 billion in fossil fuels. Companies, they're basically saying that's about £3,000 per pension holder. They want three things. They're asking all UK pension schemes to rule out any financing for any new oil and gas. That would mean basically putting these companies on notice to rule out expansions, voting against fossil fuel expanders and divesting publicly if they fail on steps 1 and 2. What do you make to this?
Well, I think this has gone very well for whatever campaign group sort of put forward that advert, because not only have they got their message shown on television without having to pay for the advert, but also, Dawn, I think you fantastically explained what people can do if they do care about where their pension fund invests. They can go look on the website, they can write to the pension fund and say, should we have a vote? I think these things are fairly democratic. Should we have a vote and put in our constitution that we don't invest in fossil fuels? I know, you know, they also do this sometimes when it comes to the arms trade. I think tobacco was one in the past that sort of lots of pension funds divested from. So that advert, I don't think is going to persuade many people who don't care about investing in fossil fuels, but I think there will be a lot of people who do instinctively not want to be investing in fossil fuels, haven't realised that they might be doing so, and the fact that we're now talking about this might sort of encourage them to go online and say, oh, I didn't realise my pension fund might be funding fossil fuels. I'm actually quite passionate about climate change, so I'm going to do something about it.
And interestingly, Michael, the pension funds that have diversified away from using fossil fuel companies have actually had a bigger return than those that still include them, 13% compared to 11%.
But my issue with all of this, right, if you want to be an ethical investor, high five you, I think that's fabulous. You do what you want with your money. But when you look at these kind of campaigns, and it's not just this campaign, it's this broader concept, it's not enough for people, seemingly, to just do what they want in their own life, with their own money and their own outlooks. It's more than that. It's telling everybody else what they need to do. So their call is for all UK pension schemes to do those things. It's not if their call was, you know what, we want all UK pension funds to have an ethical investment fund. Whatever, high five, make your choices. It's not that. It's a step beyond that, which is basically saying we want all UK pension schemes to rule out financing any new oil and gas. Why? Some people are happy with new oil and gas licences. What's it got to do with these campaigners to try and prevent people from having that option if they want to have that?
Well, I think it's important to note what they're trying to do here, which isn't to say there should be a ban on pension funds investing in these things. Basically, that advert was informing people, oh, you know what, your money might be going into XYZ thing which you're not happy about. Maybe you could write a letter to your
I'm reading to you. I'm reading directly from the campaign group. This is what it says. This is what they want you to do. Call on all UK pension schemes to rule out financing for any new oil and gas.
Yeah, but so they're saying you can email your pension fund. Obviously, you're not going to have much impact. Yeah, but so I think they're talking to all individuals in the country and saying you email your pension fund. There wouldn't be much point in me emailing a pension fund that I'm not a member of, right? So I think the idea is they're saying what they want, the outcome they want is
we want all pension funds to stop financing new oil and gas now.
But
why?
That's the outcome they want, but obviously that will only happen if lots of different pensioners and lots of people putting money into their pension fund want it to happen.
Yeah, but you're not, the point I'm trying to make, maybe I'm not articulating it properly, the point I'm trying to make is that no problem with anyone that wants to ethically invest, no problem with people that prioritise the planet, worried about climate change, no disrespect intended or meant to those people. There are a lot of other people that do not share that climate concept and are happy with their money being in those places.
So say, for example, if they got their way, you know, if this was the most successful campaign we've seen in the last 20 years, they got their way, all pension funds disinvested from fossil fuels, then if there were people who were really passionate that they wanted their pension fund to go to fossil fuels, then you could create a new pension fund, which is the dirty fuel pension fund. And if people wanted, they could invest in that.
This is my issue. Why should... So the vast majority of people, many people, will be absolutely... They'll just want the biggest return on their pension funds that they can possibly get so they can live comfortable into old age. Why should the majority of people, therefore, that want that return on investment, why should it be their lives that have to change? And this is not just about this campaign group, it's much broader. This is my issue with these campaigns and campaign groups more generally. It's all about disrupting the lives of the masses to cater for the choices of the minority groups. Why?
Well, I suppose people who campaign for climate action, so action to mitigate climate change, they would say that this is not just a minority concern. If we have climate change sort of continue at the pace it is going, that's going to damage all of our lives. It's also actually going to cost us quite a lot of money. One of the big causes of inflation has been, or it was last winter anyway, was sort of the price of tomatoes and salad and various vegetables going up because there was more extreme weather in southern Europe. And I think that's the kind of thing we're going to see more often. Obviously, people getting flooded, especially in the north of England. So climate change will have costs. At the same time, I mean, this particular campaign, to me, doesn't seem like it's demanding people really change their lifestyles too much. As Dawn said, it just turned out that the pension funds that invested in green energy instead of dirty energy made more money last time.
Yeah, it just maybe I'm turning into a grumpy old woman. It just annoys me that I feel like all the campaigns across such a broad spectrum of social issues, it's all about forcing the majority of people to change their habits, their way of lives, their mindsets, their mentalities, their outlooks, in order to cater for a new collective of people. Maybe I am just, as I say, a grumpy old woman.
There's nothing wrong with that, Michelle.
Let me share with you. I'll show you something new, something interesting and happy that caught my eye today, because I do often moan and groan, don't I, on this programme, but it's not my fault, it's the news agenda. It's very depressing at times. Anyway, look at what caught my eye today. You might be familiar with this story. It was over in India, so it's not necessarily GB News, I get it, but look at this, right? So this story, if you have been following it, I think it warms the cockles, and it's a bit of an inspirational story. It reminds people not to give up hope, right? Long story short, everybody, in case you're not familiar, these 41 construction workers, basically, in North India, they were helping to build this new road tunnel. There was this landslide, and all of these people then got stuck. I think we're on day 17 now. Anyway, they was able to pass this, like food, water, oxygen, of course, through this pipe into these people. But they have been trying for such a long time now to get these men out, and they've really struggled because drills have broken and all the rest of it. This turned into a massive rescue effort. Anyway, the good news is that they managed to get all of these people out, and they look remarkably well. I'm looking at these fella. If you're listening, not watching, they look better than what I do. They've spent 17 days down in a tunnel. They look fabulous. Everyone's absolutely delighted. All of them are healthy and well. And I just think it's such a good news story.
Honestly, Michelle, it is such a feel-good factor, isn't it? Because when this story first happened, you thought, oh, no, this is awful. Like, those poor lads trapped in that cave the other year. But as you say, they all look so healthy. And, you know, fair play to the rescuers, because they managed to open a narrow tunnel down where they could get food and water down to keep them going. But, I mean, as you say, it was like over 2 weeks they were down there. And it must have been horrific for them.
And it was like they had like a 3-foot wide pipe, basically. So they slid these guys out one at a time. And I just think the mentality of the human spirit to stay positive.
Well, it's making me feel very claustrophobic just talking about it. I'm not sure I could stay positive in that situation.
Especially if you're trapped with your work colleagues as well. Of all the people to have to be trapped in there with, no offence to some of my colleagues, but you wouldn't want to be trapped in a confined space with your colleagues.
Not with your colleagues.
Well, yeah.
Present company accepted, obviously.
Speaking of my colleagues, actually, it's all been kicking off in the press today because Nigel Farage, by the way, my colleagues, they are all right. I just wouldn't want to be stuck in a tunnel with them for 17 days. That's my point. Anyway, Nigel Farage, it's all been kicking off about Nigel Farage. He's, of course, been in the jungle. There he is. I've seen a lot of Nigel's skin during this I'm a Celeb. I'm not sure I'll look at him in the same way ever again. But anyway, there's a row brewing because basically they're saying ITV is basically trying to airbrush him out.
I just think the way ITV have been behaving is very strange. I mean, they're the ones that got him in there. They're paying him 1.5 million or whatever it is. And then we had Nigel Ligo, is it? Lithgow, whatever his name is, making that very rude gesture on stage whilst talking about Nigel in the jungle. Mate, it's your company that put him in there in the first place. And then Lorraine, the very lovely, cuddly Lorraine on daytime television, talking in a way that was really nasty about how he looked and his bottom and everything. I mean, if a man had said that about a woman, you know, their feet wouldn't touch the ground. But I just thought it was really mean.
Michael, are they airbrushing him out?
I mean, I haven't been following this series of I'm a Celebrity, so I'm not sure how much screen time he's getting. I suppose all I'll say is when I'm booked onto a show and I don't actually have to say anything, I'm normally fairly appreciative of that.
Well, especially if you're getting 1.3 million.
Yeah, I'm not getting never get 1.1.
Just don't get your bum out, OK?
I've got to say, though, I was watching it mainly because a load of people started crying because Nigel was in it and said they'd boycott it. So I thought, you know, I'm going to help them with their ratings. So I watched it. For the first time, I don't really watch that programme. And I do notice, actually, he's appearing less and less and less. What do you make to that? Do you share that opinion? Why do you think that is? Anyway, after the break, lots that I want to discuss with you. The Elgen marbles. Do you care about what the future fate of that marble is? And also, as well, the first casualty of war is often the truth. When it comes now to Israel, Hamas as an example, do you know what to believe anymore? I'll see you in 2.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Dewbs & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7, the contributing editor of Novara Media, Michael Walker, and the former editor of Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, alongside me. Apparently, us three, we're all too dumb to understand the symbolism of that woman drinking blood in plain sight. I don't know what woman was drinking blood.
What woman drinking
I think
blood?
it was. I think my viewer there is referring to the Olivia Colman, the video you've just seen. I don't think that was supposed to be blood.
It was oil.
It was oil.
Supposed to be oil.
Yeah, I do think it was supposed to be oil.
And if it was blood, what was the meaning?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure she'll get in touch and tell me. I want my pension fund to give me the best return, says Tomo on Twitter. And if that is oil and gas, then so be it. Tomo, have you got any limits with that? Would you be happy to invest, I don't know, say like in arms companies or whatever? If companies stopped investing in energy companies, the world's pension pot would be in a worse state than it currently is, says somebody else on Twitter. Be careful what you wish for. I don't know, you know, so if you look at some of these oil companies, they don't always just prosper in a straight line up the way you might imagine that they do. Right, let's talk Elgin marbles, actually. God. See, this is what I find interesting, right? Because as I've just said that sentence, look at Dawn Neeson, cut to Dawn, cameraman, look at her, where's she gone? Actually, when you took that position, you're blending into the wall. you're
oh, God, yeah, no, that's true, I do, yeah.
Your just blended. When she went ahead on the desk there, everyone, she literally
disappeared.
Just blended.
You mentioned the Elgin marbles. I just want to disappear.
Right, just let me just tell you, right, so these Elgin marbles, right, in case you're not familiar, they're not the marbles that you play with when you're kids. Oh, no, these are, like, basically sculptures. I think there's about 30 of them. It says 17 there. I thought there was about 30. Am I making that up?
Maybe.
Anyway, it says 17 anyway. They're thousands of years old, about 2,500 years old. They were removed in the early 19th century. And, you know, long story short, right, they were brought back by Lord Elgin. They were given over to the British Museum, and there's been a row pretty much ever since, well, certainly from when Greece became an independent country anyway, about who has ownership of these marbles, where they should be. My first question to everyone tonight is, do you care about this? Judging by your head-butting of the table, Dawn, why not?
I don't care. I really don't care. Look, I understand the history and I understand that, you know, we claim that we've protected them and preserved them, whereas they wouldn't have fared so well and been in such good condition if they'd have been left ungraced. I have been having this conversation and covering this story since pretty much the damn things were carved. It feels that long.
You're not that old.
I feel like it at the moment. But, look, now, if I haven't actually been out to the Acropolis. If I had, I would want to see the marble. They've got a beautiful museum there, evidently, and I would like to see the marble. It's just a frieze, basically. That's what it is. It's a frieze of the most beautifully carved statues. I would like to see it in situ. I would like to see it in the museum there on the Acropolis site. I don't want to go out there, see the rest of the ruined temples and come back and then have to go to the British. I honestly don't have a problem. Let them have it back.
David, my viewer, has got the solution. Why don't we have a referendum on the matter of these marbles? 52% convert to return them, 48 convert for them to remain here. Then Parliament could spend 2 years ignoring the decision, and then ultimately it might eventually take 6 years to get them returned, after which time the retainers could spend the rest of their lives moaning about it. Oh, David.
I'm not sure that's helping.
I think we should send everything back and then sort of everything back that we've stolen from these various countries. And then we can have a kind of competition in Britain where we have to create the best replicas and it will support arts and crafts across the country. And then also the British Museum would be telling this lovely story, which is, yes, we did steal them, but now we've given them back. And then the best of British arts and crafts has remade them, and you can sort of see them as you go around.
Wasn't it the British Museum where someone working there was nicking stuff in any case?
Yes.
That's true, yeah.
That was
you probably couldn't get away with just taking the Elgen marbles home in your bag.
That was very recent. I think about 2,000 so-called treasures were stolen. About 300 and odd of them have been returned so far. I think it was an inside job.
Yeah.
And George Osborne, remember him? Yeah. He is like the, what is he? The chair of the trustees, the chair of the museum. Anyway, they're now embarking on this massive digitisation project now so they can track their stuff that they've got in the museum. The Wellcome Trust last year, right? This stuck in my memory, and I knew it was there, and I got it all printed out today to remind myself. They had this kind of collection called the Medicine Man, and back last year they did this whole tweet thread where they said, what is the point of museums? They said, we're asking ourselves the same question. Their founder started collecting items in the 19th century in order to give people a better understanding of the art and science of healing throughout the ages. Then they went on this whole ramble. That was problematic, they say. Who did these objects belong to? How were they acquired? And what gave us the right to tell their stories? It all went on, basically, about saying that they then feel that by exhibiting these items, they were basically, the way I interpret what they were saying, is that they were demonstrating a version of medical history that is based on racist, sexist and ableist theories and language. Anyway, they closed the entire collection down for good. I thought that was a bit ridiculous, if I'm honest. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know the context here. I do think, you know, when people sometimes suggest sort of modern medicine is based on oppression, I mean, thank God.
But what is the point of museums? That's a question that they were wondering.
I mean, what is the point of museums? I mean, we live in London. When did we last go to the British Museum? I mean, I went to the Acropolis. Really very moving experience.
I'd love to go.
But I've lived in London my whole life. Maybe I've seen the Elgen marbles. I can't really remember. So, like, in the age of cheap flights and stuff, I think probably people do have a more meaningful experience when they see the items in the place.
That's what I'd love to. I'd love them to be there.
4 million people apparently visited the British Museum last year. So obviously there is indeed an appetite for this. But what is the point of museums? To learn, to educate yourself, to receive stories? I don't know. You tell me. Look, the first casualty of war is often the truth, isn't it? We're at crucial points when it comes to the Israel-Hamas situation. How do you know what to believe anymore? I'll see you in 2.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewbs with you till 7, the contributing editor of Our Media, Michael Walker, and former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Clear up a very important point that was just put to me by one of my viewers. No, I did not get dressed in a hurricane. No, I'm not wearing multiple different dresses. Yes, I can afford a single dress. It's fashion, darling. That's what I can say. Now, about these Elgen marbles, I'm telling you, so many of my viewers have written in saying, please, can you correct Michael Walker? The Elgen marbles were not stolen. I think, correct you as well, didn't you say that?
No.
They were not stolen. They were purchased by Lord Elgin. Why does everybody keep saying that those things were stolen? Well, there you go. I didn't correct that. I did indeed correct that. Look, time flies on this programme. There is something else I want to get to because I think it's really interesting and important. We all know we're at a critical point now with the conflict when it comes to Israel and Hamas. The first casualty of war is the truth, right? That is a saying that has been quoted and on and on. I have seen a lot of outrage over the last 24 hours. There is a screening, IDF are doing a screening about body cam footage. You yourself attended this screening along with Owen Jones, who is a journalist that many of you guys at home will perhaps be familiar with. Now, there's some critiquing done of the screening that the IDF have been displaying, and a lot of people are upset and angry that it's critiqued as opposed to being taken face value, which kind of makes me get to the point of when it is this situation, this war zone going on, how do people know what to believe, and what do you feel to the criticism that's been aimed at people that are scrutinising information that's coming out?
Yeah, so I mean, I think in terms of the screening specifically, so my problem with that is I do think that what should happen if we want to learn what has happened on any event is that footage and evidence should be passed to independent news outlets. So I'm not expecting it to get sent to Our Media. I think Reuters, Associated Press, the BBC, companies where you've got really experienced journalists who can verify things and put them in context. My concern with the IDF screening, very distressing to watch, by the way, of course. I mean, there were terrible things which happened on October the 7th. But my concern is they've shown a lot of people. Often they're not really investigative journalists. They're often sort of people with big Twitter followings or people who host... Influencers, essentially. And then what the influencer does is they say, the things I have seen, you can't possibly imagine. And then what that encourages the audience to do is imagine the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I think there's a reason that these are being put on by the IDF, by the Israel Defense Force, because they want people to be having these wild, imaginative sort of explorations where they think, oh, what's the worst possible thing I can imagine to happen? Oh, that must have happened. That must be what these journalists saw when they were in the cinema. And then you get these sort of ridiculous situations where you have someone like Douglas Murray going on Talk TV and saying Hamas are worse than the Nazis. And you've got this sort of this inflation where we keep having to say this is worse than the worst thing ever. And this is used to then justify the bombing of lots of people in Gaza.
That is a view that a lot of people have, isn't it, about Hamas?
That they are worse than that. Well, let's make no mistake. What happened on October the 7th, I'm sure Michael will agree, was utterly horrific. And you just can't comprehend what the families and the people at the dance festival went through. Atrocities have been committed on both sides, and I don't remember, and I covered the genocide in Rwanda, and also was lucky, if that's the right word, to go to Bosnia and talk to people out there who experienced their the murders of Muslims out there. So I've never experienced as much propaganda as we are seeing from both sides in this conflict. Maybe it's because, obviously, compared to those two conflicts, the advent of social media, everything is on social media now, and the existence of deep fakes, where it's incredibly hard to see what is real. I mean, on a lighter note, that the Pope in a puffer jacket, the world was fooled by that. It was clearly a fake in the end. But there's so many images now, and I, as an experienced journalist, I have no idea whether what I'm seeing on either side is real anymore.
And that is the problem, that is the challenge. Because right now, not just this country, many countries across the globe, understandably, are massively divided on this issue. What's going on in Israel, Hamas, is absolutely affecting domestically a variety of different countries, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think on this issue, so I think one of the reasons the Israelis are getting somewhat frustrated is because they have closer relationships with our governments, and they have closer relationships with more establishment media. So it's generally been the case that Western media and Western politics has sort of given the Israeli perspective on things. And I think because of the advent of social media, and this is why lots of people on the Israeli side are complaining about TikTok, is what younger people are seeing, what they're shocked by, is the bombing by a state which is our ally of innocent women and kids. Because remember, what Hamas did on October the 7th was terrible, but our government doesn't fund or back Hamas. But for me, what Israel has been doing over the past few weeks is terrible, and our government funds and backs them. So I think that's why people on the left and younger people on these apps are more outraged by the Israeli side, just because we back them.
Well, there you go. What do you make to it all? Do you double-check everything that you see? Do you take things at face value? What do you think is the role of social media? Is it an essential, place of getting your facts, or is it too easy, manipulated for the gain of others? Your thoughts on that? For now, Michael Walker, thank you for your company tonight. Dawn Neeson, thank you as well for yours. Also, very important, thank you guys at home. I very much appreciate your company. Lots of you still writing in about the Elgen marbles. Apparently, yes, you do care. And lots of you are saying that they're ours and they should remain here. Anyway, look, that's all I've got time for. Have a fabulous night and I will see you tomorrow.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold weather continues. Quite a few of us having a frosty start tomorrow morning, and for some there'll be some sleet and snow around as well. This area of low pressure just edging down through the North Sea, bringing some gusty winds, but also bringing more showers to northern Scotland and down the eastern side into northeast England, southeast Scotland. 1 or 2 sleet and snow showers may produce a covering through the night, and it could turn icy as temperatures plummet. A few rain showers scattered over the Midlands, Wales, southwest England. A bit more cloud here may just prevent a frost, but really from the Midlands northwards, many areas will be below freezing, rural spots well below freezing, and hence why it could be icy still, where we've got these showers coming in tomorrow over northern, northeastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Again, some sleet and snow is likely for a time. The cloud in the south should tend to break up, and so for many it'll be a day of sparkling sunshine, but it will be a cold feeling day. 2 or 3 for many across the north, maybe 5, 6 or 7, and perhaps a little higher in the far southwest. Milder air nudging back in here on Thursday, bringing some wet weather, damp and drizzly. The possibility of some sleet and snow, mostly over the moors in the southwest. Further wintry showers in parts of the east. Again, it could be icy first thing in the morning. But again, for many, it's a dry and a bright day, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures mostly around 3 or 4 Celsius.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels.